Hello. This brief video is to demonstrate how to obtain a histogram from a dataset using SPSS and how to make a few changes to that histogram, and to at least very briefly introduce you to the idea of getting some of the descriptive statistics from SPSS as well. So what I'll do is I'll start with a short dataset that I have here. It simulates data for 105 students in 5 different sections in a physics class, where group indicates the section that they've been assigned to, and exam indicates the score that they obtained on their first exam. So the first thing I want to do is actually obtain the summary statistics. So I'm going to go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Explore, and the first thing I'm going to do is just move exam over to the dependent variable list. And I'm going to click OK. I'm not going to add anything else. And this will give me a summary of information for the entire group aggregated into one large data set. In other words, not paying any attention to what section students were assigned in. With this output, we can see the summary statistics for the data set. We notice, first of all, that the average is 76.4 and change. But more importantly, right now, I want to look at the minimum and the maximum. The minimum is 56, and the maximum is 93.5. So roughly, if I imagine that range from 56 to 93.5 broken up relatively evenly into about 10 intervals, that would give me a class width of about 5. Before I move on, I want to show you that you can use the same Explore dialog box. So we're going to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Explore. You can use the same dialog box to actually break apart and get information for each of the sections individually. So if I were to move Group, which indicates the sections that the students were in, into the factor list and then click OK, this will give me the same style output, but it will actually give me the information for each section individually. So we notice here that there are 5 groups, tells how many students were actually in each group, and then it proceeds to give the summary statistics for each group individually, along with a few graphics that can be used to show some comparisons across the groups, namely the stem and leaf plot and the box plots. All right, let's go back and build the histogram now. So I'm going to go to Graphs, Legacy Dialog, and I'm going to choose the histogram option. I'm going to move exam into variable, and under most circumstances I'd want to click Display Normal Curve, but in this case it will actually clutter my graph. So I'm going to leave that one unchecked for now, and I'll click OK. And here's the histogram that SPSS automatically generates. We notice that the class widths appear to be about range of 10 divided into 4, but we notice that they're kind of unevenly spaced. For example, the lower class widths don't appear to line perfectly with 60, 70, 80, or 90. In fact, I can actually figure out what the lowest class limit is. If I double-click on the graph, it will activate the graph. If I double-click on any bar, it doesn't matter which one, it will give me some information about the graph. And it appears to be using, indeed, it does appear that the graph is using a class width of about 2.5, but it's starting at a relatively strange value of 54.75. I'm going to choose Custom under the X-axis part of the dialog box. I'll select the interval width, and I'll tell it that I'd like to see an interval width of, I'll start with 10, a little more aggregated than I would actually use. And when I click Apply, I notice that it recalculates the graph, and I notice that it changed the first lower class limit to 50. Now I could go back and change the interval width again to 5. It'll make a little more refined graph. And again, it's changed the lower class limit to 50. So in this case, there's no values from 50 to 55, so it indicates no bar there. All right, I'll close this graph. And the next thing that I want to see is the frequencies for each of these graphs. And if I right-click on any bar in the graph, I can scroll down to the option Show Data Labels. And when I click it, it automatically turns on the data labels, but it kind of does something strange. So I can actually click Close as soon as I've done this because the data labels are present. And I notice that the y-axis no longer counts from 0. And for a bar graph, that's probably not the most appropriate presentation. So I'm going to double-click on the y-axis. I'm going to choose the Scale option, and I'm going to set the minimum to 0 instead of the default that it applied of 4. And when I click OK, I can close this. And now once I close this open box, it will give me an updated graph. So I have the histogram, and inside the histogram, I have the frequency counts for each of the bars. And the histogram has a class width of 5, and it spans the range of 55 to 95. So giving me, in this case, 8 classes, but again, I was aiming for about 10. So to have 8 classes is perfectly fine. All right, I hope this information helps. Thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye.